Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Carly Lane back talking to me again. Hi Carly.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Seems like we're making this a regular thing.
It's just been a little bit regular this year, hasn't it?
You're always, I don't know how you do it, you always have something on the go.
Yes. Well, this was just a little extra one we've slipped in. So yes, it feels like I'm here all the time at the moment.
Mm. So, a little bit about Carly for those who haven't met Carly before. Carly's actually an associated author for Global Girls Online Book Club. So, you might have seen her posting a little bit before in our group. And yeah, and I've certainly talked to her a lot before about her books. Carly's an author over 20 novels and writes across a variety of genres, everything from women's fiction, family drama, fantasy, and romantic suspense, as well as being better known for her rural fiction. Her latest book, Accidentally Working Class, started out as a family drama, which then took a turn towards a rom-com before deciding to add a sprinkle of women's fiction. And we can see the beautiful cover there of that. And you self-published this one, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about it?
yeah, well, it started when my first women's fiction I wrote for Allen and Unwin was Take Me Home, and that was the one set in Scotland. And it was very much more about the main character's sort of journey, less about the community she lived in and the romance and all the other sorts of bits and pieces I usually have in my rural fiction. So we'd sort of talked, the publisher and I had talked and decided that we could probably do a women's fiction in May and a rural in December, because I usually have the two time slots to fill up. So after writing the Scotland book, I really didn't have any other women's fiction ones in mind. I sat down to a blank page and thought, what am I going to write? And this one started coming out, which was supposed to be more of a women's fiction type thing. But yeah, then it sort of started feeling a lot more like a rom-com. And it was very, very different to my rural fiction, which even Take Me Home had sort of still stuck to a rural theme, despite the fact I didn't intend it to. It kind of did, because Scotland was so rural in itself. So this was very much what I was sort of thinking for a women's fiction. It's completely different to my rural. But yeah, it sort of was a bit too different for the publisher, because they weren't sure how to market it when my other stuff was rural. And yeah, it was a bit sad, because I just thought it would be nice to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, I just thought, well, I'm going to self-publish it anyway, which gives me free reign with a cover and all the sorts of things that I haven't done for a long time. I originally started self-publishing when I first started, and I haven't done anything for a long time because I don't have the time. But this was nice. It was nice to take a little break and do something different.
Yeah, and have to say, I read it myself and really liked it. It is different from your others, I have to say, but yeah, it was good to read something different, and I liked like it was a bit funny and a little bit of romance, and also the family relationships. I quite liked that as well.
Yeah, yeah, had a bit of everything.
Yeah, it did. And so, how can you tell people how they can get hold of a copy?
At the moment, it's up on all the ebook sites, so Kobo, Amazon, all those sorts of things. Amazon have it available in print as well for anyone that wants it in print. And I have been getting a few copies in that I'm selling on my online website. Um, I've already gone through everything I had the other day, so I had to do another order in.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
That's good news,
yeah,
though.
if you it is. It's a bit of a pain. You never know how many to have in, but yeah. So I mean, ebook is probably how I thought this one would go, which is also good, because I'm self-publishing. I've got it available over all territories, which is lovely. So it's sort of now it'll be worldwide, which is where
Mm,
my rural ones are a little bit limited in that they can only go Australia and New Zealand.
mm,
So I'm pretty excited that maybe this one will go UK and US and everywhere else. So
yeah,
that'll
yeah.
be good, and that'll probably do it as an ebook. So yeah.
Mm, mm. And because Ellen and Unwin didn't take this one on, does that mean that you have to still do another women's fiction for them?
Yeah, well, I had a small mini meltdown when they said no originally. This was back, I think last February or so, because
Mm,
this was what I was scheduled to do. So I had to actually start a new one from scratch when they said no to this one.
mm,
Um, that kind of threw me out a little bit, but it was good because I ended up writing another one. I had 4 months or 5 months to do it, and I did it in 4 months. And then I just got my mojo back, actually. I kept writing after that. So it was good in a way that it kind of, I think panic sparked creativity for some reason.
yeah.
So I've been writing a few since then, which is really good. I'm
Yeah.
back on track now. Yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine you must have been crazy writing.
I was.
And we've got quite a few people watching, so just reminding people watching, if you do have a question for Carly, please type it in comments and I can read it out. Got quite a few people who are saying they're looking forward to reading it. Kelly says she can't wait to read it, and Sharon says she's really looking forward to reading this one. Can you tell us what your first idea was for Accidentally Working Class?
I sort of thought I'd do like a really dysfunctional family because most of my families in my rules are quite functional
Mm.
as opposed to this lot. So it
Some
kind of
strange
started with,
things do happen in their family, don't they?
yeah, well, that's true. Yes, there's some very odd things.
Mm,
Yeah, I kind of wanted to write as weird a family as I could, and I thought the opposite to what my characters normally are would be some really rich sort of family, but they almost had to be. I was thinking about how the royals are always sort of, in their scandals and things in the magazines and stuff. I just sort of thought it'd be good to have something of that caliber without them being the royal family.
mm,
But yeah, so something that was going to be very different, so mega rich and in a completely different sort of um, area to what I normally write.
And
Yeah.
what sort of feedback have you been getting? Especially I'm wondering about people who have been long time readers of you.
Yeah, well, it's very, very new, so I haven't had a lot of feedback. I've
Mm,
had a few come back saying that they really liked it, which is great. Big relief. It's sort of
mm,
like you're walking on eggshells for a little while till you know. But especially with this one, I'm not sure how readers are actually going to take it. I'm hoping it still has the same voice going through it. Because even with my romantic suspense, which are my military type ones, and that I've got long time readers that have still said they can still hear Carly Lane through it
mm,
somehow,
mm.
even though it's a very different genre. So hopefully this one still has a little bit of the same things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they don't hate it.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got an interesting question from Kerry. Either you might be able to answer it, or maybe someone watching can answer as well. She said she's never read any of your books before, and she wonders if there's other authors that you compare to.
Cool. Well, I guess in the rural fiction, it'd be there's a really close knit, really lovely community of writers there with Rachel Johns
Hmm.
and I can't even think off the top of my head now. There's a whole heap that write rural fiction. I don't know
And
whether we
Rachel
are
Jones
all a
does a
little
bit of
different.
rural fiction and women's fiction as well. So
Yeah,
that's,
I
yeah.
must say I actually haven't read any of Rachel's women's fiction, which I've got
Oh,
to
really?
do.
You'll
I
have
must do
to.
that one day.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Yeah, because
Mm,
they are very different too, which is
mm,
lovely. But yeah, I don't know. Even though I think there are a lot, I don't. We are very different. I think in the
mm,
rural fiction community too. There's a lot that write a little bit different. So I don't know
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm
if
sure there'll be
anyone
people that can put her
watching
on.
wants to say who they think Carly might compare to, please feel free to comment and I can let Carly know. Um, Wondering also, what have you been reading yourself lately? Have you had any chance to read, or have you just
Oh,
been busy writing too
I
much?
haven't really had much of a chance, but actually, I knew you were going to ask me that today. I have just been down to see Alan and Unwin, and they sent me this one the other day, this 26
Okay,
letters.
I haven't heard of that
Um,
one yet.
yeah, I haven't started it yet, but I picked it up while I was down there, and I
Mm.
thought I'm going to start reading that.
Is
So
that an Australian author?
I think it is, isn't it? Charlotte Nash.
Mm.
Don't know. That's I know she's published with Ellen and Unwin because they often
Yeah.
give me some books to read, and then I've got to try and fit them in. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting starting something different because I haven't had a chance to read lately, and I really
Mm.
need to. I think.
Mm. And what about if you were to recommend us one of your best books you've read this year? Have you
Mm.
read anything great to share this year?
What is this month? I don't think I have.
We're into
We're into
July
July.
already.
Oh my goodness, so annoying at the end of the year. I actually haven't read much at all, to tell you the truth, to tell you which would be. But yeah, no, I haven't actually read much at all this year, I've got to say.
Yeah.
I do need to change that drastically.
And Sharon said, now that you've written this book and it's a different genre to your other books, which genre have you preferred to write?
I don't know about preferred, but I'm always drawn to my rural fiction. I think that always it's such a I I don't feel limited when I write rural fiction. I think there's
Mm,
so much you can do. Life in the country isn't always just on a farm or, the typical country stuff. You've got a lot of stuff happening in country towns, in regional towns, and things that impact country sort of living. So I don't know. I don't think I'm really ever going to get sick of writing rural fiction because there's
mm,
just such a scope to write in. But I do, I don't know. I didn't intend to do something that was so different here, but occasionally that just happens. So I don't know. Something might pop up later. Maybe it was just my brain's way of saying I needed a bit of a, you know, bit of a change to shake things up. But yeah, I've certainly gone
yeah.
back to writing rural fiction after this anyway. But yeah, something else might
Mm,
pop up down the track.
mm. And are you able to tell us anything of what's coming up for you?
My December book is already well underway with edits and goodness knows what. It comes out in December. It's based on it's it sounds really depressing. I get in trouble from the publisher for saying this because it sounds like a really depressing book, but it's not. But it's very much two different people that are trying to come to terms with and dealing with moving on after a lot of loss in family,
Okay.
friends, things like
Mm,
that. They're dealing with a lot of stuff like that. My main character is um, a war veteran who's yeah, having to deal with a lot of losing his mates. It deals with a
mm,
bit of suicide in military sort of ranks,
mm.
things like that. Yeah, and just it's set up in Ebor, which is really lovely, a place I love to go up to on a little. It's not really a retreat. It's there's little cabins that you can stay in up there, and I was staying there to try and write something else, and ended up
Oh,
writing this book
okay.
while I was there,
Yeah.
starting this book. So, yeah, it's just in a really lovely part of Australia that it's
Mm,
set.
Where is that in New South Wales?
Yeah, up in up around Armidale, up that
Okay.
way.
Yeah.
Up, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you're writing those sorts of novels, the rural fiction, do you base it usually on a place you've been to?
A lot of times, yeah, I find I like to make fictional towns up because it makes it easier if you want to
Mm,
just add in a bit of stuff that's not there. But a lot of times, I do find that it will be set around there. I've done quite a few that are set up around New England sort of
mm,
area. But even some of the towns that aren't really supposed to be coastal and that, I do base them on my hometowns where I'm living in Maxwell or Barraville. They've got really lovely old-fashioned sort of country towns, and
mm,
I think in my head that's what I see when I create my town. So a lot of the time it is based on places that I have been or grown up in.
Mm. And what about Accidentally Working Class? Can you tell us a bit about the setting of that?
Well, it's completely out of my
Yeah.
realm. It's yeah, it's sort of set in Brisbane and the Gold Coast sort of areas. So it's kind of places I have been. I have my kids live up that way, so I go up there a little bit. But yeah, definitely dealing with the high end of society, which I have no experience with. I
Did
was
you
making
do
that
any
up as I
research?
went.
No, did you do any research for your book on?
Yeah, well, I did have to look up lots and lots of different fashion labels and
Mm.
yeah, the best of everything. It was actually quite nice. It was kind of like taking a little holiday in a luxury resort without actually going anywhere. Had to sort of see how the other half lived, and quite frankly, I feel like I could do that if I won the lotto quite happily. So yeah, it was fun to do. It was fun to do something a lot different to what I normally do.
Mm.
So that was good.
Mm. And the characters are quite fun. Have you got a favourite character?
Um, they all have a little bit of interesting habits, don't they?
They
Yeah, I don't
do.
know. I think Queen's pretty cool. I think I really like her, and
Mm.
I kind of I like the uncle. I think he was a quirky one to write, and
Mm.
yeah, I just liked writing all of them. Actually, it was nice to write really different characters. I don't think I've ever had any of these sorts of characters in my rural fiction at all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know how they would sit in a rule field, although it could be interesting to
It could be,
introduce one of them
yeah, yeah. Could be a good,
and do a crossover.
yeah. Yeah, it could make an interesting book.
Yes, yes. I think they'd shake up a rural town very much.
Yeah, I think so. Mm. And what about the names? How did you come? There's some, yeah, I loved some of the names and yeah, especially
Yeah.
like
Well,
Quinn
that
and,
was it was really that was fun too to do because with
mm,
my rural fiction I tend to stick to traditional type names and things that are going to sort of suit that sort of thing. And it is funny because when you do read, especially if you're reading any kind of American books, they'll have all the really cool names, like
mm,
I can't even think off the top of my head, but all the real cool names. But I have tried to put one of those names in books before, and my editors at the time, it was earlier on, was sort of saying, well, it's not very Australian, it doesn't sound very rural. So, yeah, I don't get a chance to use really cool names much. So
mm,
this one was really lovely that I could just shove any name in there that I wanted. So,
mm.
and I am getting limited with my names. I'm
Yeah, well,
trying to,
after all
as I
that,
start a
yeah,
new book, it's
yeah,
getting a problem. I'm trying to write, yeah, use some names without recycling too many of them.
mm,
But yeah, we are getting to the point where I think I might have to introduce some really cool American names to my characters.
yeah, yeah. Well, maybe you do need an American person coming to visit one of the.
Maybe, yeah, I might have to.
So how do you like? Is that something you make sure you don't do? Like you totally steer away from having the same names in your books because this you've written so many books now. It must be getting harder and harder.
It is getting harder, and
Mm,
it's only recently that it started, I guess, being something I've taken notice of, only because I'll automatically go to write a name and think, why is this so familiar? And then I've already
mm,
used it somewhere. So, yeah, it is getting hard because
yeah.
I have written a book before and didn't realize I was going to sort of, I guess, write another book, and then I've used a really crappy name for the character that I sort of want to keep going with, and then I can't go back and
Oh,
change it. So
yeah.
it's really important when I'm writing them that I give everyone names I really like.
Mm,
But that is getting really hard, trying to
mm,
sort of find all your really favourite names or nice names, and so, yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, it's getting interesting. I
mm.
don't know what I'm
Do
going to do,
you
but I
have
guess
a way? Do you keep a record of them all somewhere in one place?
no, and I did try to start, but it's just ridiculous when you start
Mm.
writing out all the names, and it's only a couple of books, and I
Yeah.
keep looking at the rest of them and thinking this is ridiculous. But I just write them and then do sometimes flick through the others to make sure I haven't used it as a
Mm.
main character anyway. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I guess it's going to come time to recycle a few names.
Yeah. And how have you gone about promoting Accidentally Working Class?
Yeah, well, this is all new territory too, I've got to say.
Mm.
I have a brand new appreciation for my publicist and and everything that goes along with all the stuff they do for my books, because I've just really just put it out for some bloggers and yeah, just word of mouth, I guess. It's not in shops, so it's not sort of going to catch a lot of that kind of mainstream reader. So I'm just sort of really putting it out there, hoping that other people might pick it up for the first time, that it's a different genre, and maybe I'll get some new readers to pick it up as an ebook or something. So yeah, I'm just happy that it got out there. I really didn't want it to just sit on my computer in a file. It's sort of, there's something really frustrating about having a book written and not doing anything.
Especially after all the effort and time you've put into it.
Yeah, and it just feels I don't know, it just was a bit of a cop out just to leave it on the computer, I think. So yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed doing another self-published one, even though it's not something I have time to normally put a lot of energy into normally. But the fact that it was there and it didn't have a home, it sort of was basically begging to be self-published. So, and I really enjoyed it. I got to do my covers and put stuff into that I don't normally get a lot of a say and stuff like that. So it was lovely to have a play with that and just do something different for a change and get it out of my system for a while.
Yeah. One thing I just remembered as well when I was reading your book, what it reminded me a lot was of a Reese Witherspoon sort of type of the sort of movie that she would be in.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is different because with the genre I write in, it is hard to see someone making, I guess, a movie out of the raw fiction genre. I mean, I could see them doing a series or doing just a TV little mini thing or something, but it's very hard, I think, to see it as a lot of those books as movies. Whereas I think if you go into different genres, they are sort of lending themselves a little bit more to the possibility of that. But definitely, if anyone knows Reese Witherspoon, I would love them to refer the book to them. I don't care if it changes it to American. I'd be happy with that.
And Kerry, who said before that she hadn't heard of you before or read any of your books before, she said she's just borrowed a stone's throw away from the library, so she's
lovely.
She's all ready to go.
Oh, lovely! Good on you.
And Alison said when we were talking about names before that she really agrees that the name really needs to be able to suit the characters, otherwise it can, ruin the book sometimes.
And I have named a character before, but ended up changing it because it just didn't somehow feel, which is strange because my characters are all strangers to me before I start writing them anyway. But some names just never quite click. Which is it's interesting, isn't it? It's a strange little concept, but sometimes you just got to be able to work with the name.
Yeah. And could you tell us a bit about like how you start off when you first start writing your book? Do you do any planning? I don't think you do much planning, we've said before, but is there any that you do at all, or do you like you have a lot of characters? How do you remember how they all intertwine?
I do take to writing them. Well, I do take to writing them down now on a notepad, just because it is at the very beginning. It's a bit tricky sometimes, and because I swap between books a lot too. I've got about 3 on the go at the moment. Yeah. Especially at the beginning, if I've only written a couple of chapters, I do need to have everybody written down so I know who they are, because I forget what I've called them sometimes. But I really don't. I try to have an idea about what I want to do. And I mean, one of the ones I'm doing at the moment came up. It's actually about an older woman who's divorced, who her daughters set her up on a dating app.
Oh, okay.
And in a small rural town, you can imagine how that goes down because there's really not a lot of choice out there. So especially with her age group and everything that's going on. So and that came just from a funny conversation my daughter and I were having about dating apps and things. So that was something that was really interesting, and I just thought, oh, that would make a really good story. So I've started writing that one. And so that if I got an idea about a something that I want to make into an idea, it's good, because then at least I've got a starting point, and then I just have to make up my characters, who they're going to be, what they're going to do, and that sort of thing, where the town is, what sort of town it's going to be. So that's been really good. I like it when I've got something sort of meaty to go with, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's just a scene or something that I think of, or as with Stone's Throw Away, it was just, what if a dam dried up and in the bottom they found some old bones, and that sort of, I had to figure out a whole backstory plus a history sort of bit for that. So it just sort of depends what idea I've got to start with, how I go about it. But I definitely write the characters and that down now at the moment, so that I can keep them all straight to start with. Once I'm into the book, it's not so bad.
Once you get to know them a
You're
bit
more
better,
familiar with them.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
but to start with,
overall of your books,
yeah.
do you find that plot, character, or location comes first more often than others, or?
Mostly I guess it's the plot.
Yeah.
If I've got that idea, I guess. Sometimes it's a character. Sometimes it'd be like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a character who was some sort of occupation. And if that's the case, then you do have to figure out what their story is going to be and where they're going to be. I mean, my location's usually pretty good because it's somewhere rural.
Yeah.
So that's usually got me sorted, and I just have to sort of figure out where I want to write it. And sometimes that comes just from, for instance, where my next book in December's, because it was where I was, and I was there in winter, and it started off and they were cold and it was winter time. That sort of settled the location where it was going to be. But yeah, it just depends on the story and where I need to have the location and that.
And Sharon wonders if you have a writing routine and whether you write every day.
I do try to write every day. It has gone downhill rapidly this last few months. I haven't really been in any kind of routine. But I do try to make myself do something writing. So even if it's, for instance, the publicity for this sort of stuff, or doing some kind of promotional thing, answering something to doing my web page, doing something. Even if I'm not in an actual mood to write, I do try to do something writing related. But it usually does end with, I better open that file and look at it, and then I start reading, and then I think, oh yeah, and I just keep going. So I do try to write every day. Mainly I try to keep it as a job, Monday to Friday sort of thing. But it just depends. Sometimes if I am on a roll and there's nothing to do, I'll sit down and write on the weekend, or write at night. But usually I just do it through the daytime.
Yeah. And Alison wonders how long it takes you to write a book in general.
I think on average they're around 7 months. But then that's not always sitting down every day writing that, because often I'll chop and change between the books I'm writing. Sometimes it's because
you're writing more than
I
one
get stuck.
at a time, don't you?
Yeah. I tend to sort of chop around a bit. So, but it's usually 7 months from the time I've started it to when I'm ready to submit it. So, but then Under Pressure, I wrote that other one in 4 months. So it just depends, I think, on what's hanging over your head at the time, or and the idea. Like I said, if you've got a really well-formed idea in your head, it seems to be so much easier to just write, because you don't have to spend all that time sitting and thinking and brainstorming things. And
And Cindy wonders if you have a favourite character out of all of your books.
It really is hard, because they're kind of all my favourite at the time. I don't know. They are really hard to pick, I've got to say. I do love Poppy out of Poppy's Dilemma. She's one of my favourites. She was sort of one of the earlier ones. I don't know. I do sort of like all of them, but I kind of don't visit them very often after I've written their stories.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I've gone back and looked at something, I thought, oh, she was really lovely. I did love that one.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's sort of like the next question I was going to ask you. Do the characters stay with you after you've finished writing the book?
Well, not really, not really in everyday stuff, but
Mm,
occasionally I'll think of something and think, oh, that's what happened in that book or whatever,
mm,
and think of the characters or what's something that might have happened in one of the books and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's because I'm just continuously writing. And that sounds really horrible because you invest so much in these characters. I really should probably take time to miss them a lot more than I do. But I do miss them when I go back and reread and think, oh, that was lovely. And yeah. But I think
mm,
sometimes it's different when you go back to reread the books. It's not because you're editing or you're writing or you're under pressure. I think sometimes you can go back and really sort of just see it sort of from the outside a little bit more, and then I do really appreciate them sometimes because
mm.
I often think, wow, that was really clever. I don't remember writing that, or wow, that was a really good line. Or so sometimes it's really funny just to sit back and read it as a reader instead of
Mm,
as a writer.
mm. And what do you hope readers will love about Accidentally Working Class?
I just hope they find it a little bit fun, I guess, and something a bit different.
Mm,
Maybe a little bit lighter than normal, but yeah, I think I wrote it more. It wasn't as deep and emotional as I think a lot of my other books are. So
mm,
it's supposed to be a little bit lighter. So hopefully it's just a read that they can sort of have and yeah, feel like they've had a nice time.
mm. Because quite a lot of your books touch on something that's quite like a social issue or
Mm,
yeah, something like that. So this
yeah.
one is a lot more light-hearted than that. Are your new books coming up? You've got some issues that you're touching on?
Mm, yeah, yeah. Well, the one in December, yeah, it's a little bit emotional, I guess.
Hmm.
But having said that, I hope to by the end of the book that people have worked their way through it, which is sort of, I guess, like in real life, you want to sort of come
Yeah.
through the other side. But
Hmm.
yeah, it deals with people losing other people and how they
Hmm.
move on and do stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and then I don't know what the other ones are. I can't even think of what ones else are coming. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
got a few things up my sleeve
Mm. And
coming
Kelly
out.
wonders which of your books has been the hardest to write.
Well, hardest in technique, I would say would be one of the earlier ones. I think it was Morgan's Law, um,
Mm.
only because it was probably in book number 2 or 3 or something I'd written. And I had decided after listening to lots of different people, authors talking that they all seem to have a really um, strategic kind of plan to writing. They would write down on cards and they had it all the scenes mapped out. And I thought maybe I should try that because maybe that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And I did that. And honestly, it was the hardest damn book to write
Yeah.
because I'd written the book in plot form, like in card
Mm.
form, and I knew what was going to happen. And it was really painful going back and writing each chapter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
After you've
So
read it. Yeah.
yeah, that was really hard. And probably also there was a book that I put out early on called December's Wish, which then got republished as I think Third Time Lucky was
Okay.
what we renamed it.
Mm.
Um, and I thought that would be quite easy because it was like a novella that I'd written early on, and it was only at about 30,000 words or something,
Mm.
and we had to turn it into a novel of 80,000. But I figured the story was there. All I had to do was sort of go back in and just make it bigger. But that was really quite difficult too
Mm.
because there was a lot more involved in. You can't just pad it out. You had to actually go in and write more stories. So
Yeah.
that ended up turning into a bit of a thing too.
Mm.
But yeah, I think I get a little bit. Sometimes I get a bit emotional with some of the storylines that make it a difficult
Mm.
write to go
Mm.
through. But I think, um, I always know they're going to come out okay in the end. So I think that makes it easier for me to write it.
Yeah.
It might be harder as a reader to read someone going through a lot of stuff, but I think a lot of my readers know that they can trust at the end. They're going to be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for talking with me again. Do you want to just say again how people can purchase Accidentally Working Class, where they can find it?
Yep, it should be available online across all the formats in ebook. So Amazon, Kobo, all the places that you can download your ebooks from. It's also available in print via Amazon, and on my website, I've got a couple of orders coming in to fulfill. So within a week or so, I'll have more stock for people that want them signed, and I can print them out. Yeah, otherwise, and I'm hoping libraries, if you really want to read it, you can't get hold of it. If you go and ask the library, they should be able to order it in as well. So it'd be good to get it into libraries.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who joined in. We had some great questions again,
They were good questions.
and look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks for having me. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.